What happens when a truly frightening new horror movie promises to be based on a true story?
Tommy, what's wrong?
No!
Okay, Tommy, when I count to...
Only to end up upsetting the community it's supposedly based on. When a movie studio goes so far in their attempt to recreate the phenomenon that was Blair Witch Project or Paranormal Activity, they created a website with fake news clippings that use real-life publications and the names of writers from that same community. What happens when the director and star actress literally walk into the frame of that same film to promise that these are dramatizations of real-life events backed by evidence that you'll see and hear in the film?
In the end, what you believe is yours to decide.
In the end, what you believe is yours to decide.
Well, a lawsuit, obviously. But there's a whole lot more that happens behind today's film. In this video, we'll talk about the making of The Fourth Kind, as well as fact-check it and break down the real tragedies of Nome, Alaska that likely sparked this idea in the first place. Here's the true story of The Fourth Kind.
What it did to me. I listened to that tape over and over.
Writer, director, and awkward on-screen interviewer in The Fourth Kind, Alatunde Asusanmi,
Let's stop there.
is said to be a protege of Smokin' Aces director Joe Carnahan, with whom he worked as an assistant.
We'll see you up here someday. You think so?
And who later produced the film. Alatunde wrote the screenplay and came up with this gambit of a movie, which was picked up by Universal for distribution. Just before the film was released, Brad Brevet of ComingSoon.net reached out to Universal for any information regarding how much of the film's marketing was based on real events. He was only able to produce a press sheet that revealed the following information about its conception: that in October of 2004, Alatunde was wrapping up another film and traveled to North Carolina for post-production, where allegedly a colleague told him about a psychologist who had moved there from a remote town in Alaska. Allegedly, my god, are we gonna have to use that word a lot here? He contacted this psychologist and convinced her to tell him her story, which they say included a terrifying and heavily documented sleep study that concluded with terrifying results about extraterrestrials. This psychologist has never, nor has anyone else involved, come forward since, and the film says that the names have all been changed to protect the people behind these stories. Yeah, sure. When the film begins, the gorgeous Milla Jovovich walks out of the forest like some sort of majestic creature to inform us that, well, she's actress Milla Jovovich.
And this is?
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
And she's here to portray Dr. Abigail Tyler in a dramatization of events that occurred on October 1st of 2000. They even give us a specific date of the events. No inspired by a true story or based on a true story. This is a dramatization of events that allegedly took place on this night and in the days that followed. And oh man, Milla looks serious.
It's the only thing I have within my power. It's all I have left is to continue.
So damn serious. The ethics of all this aside, this is indeed a multi-layered and ambitious idea in meta filmmaking. Jovovich informs us that the director has also chosen to include archive footage from the psychologist's personal collection so that the audience could better understand the events that took place. The footage comes from 65 hours of videotape that Dr. Abigail allegedly recorded during her studies. But again, they changed everyone's names and professions, so you can't find them to ask about it. She informs us that everything we see in this film is backed up by Dr. Abby's video, audio, or just some shit Abby told the director during filming. Finally, Milla asks us to please be advised that some of what we are about to see may be disturbing. And you know it's serious because the camera is spinning around her like she's goddamn Martin Lawrence and Will Smith at the end of Bad Boys.
Something wrong, Mr. Ventura?
Now, despite the possibility that this is some of the most egregiously blown hot smoke up our ass in cinema history, you have to love the sportsmanship here. I feel like I'm about to go on a Universal Studios ride. It's exciting. We then pan to a Chapman University interview with Abigail, who looks like she needs a shot of B12 in a pool day, as the actual director of the film interviews her. Despite desperately needing to blink, she bravely tells her story, which then pans to actual audio of her speaking, which then turns into Milla Jovovich acting. And we're off. She's now speaking to her friend and fellow doctor Elias Koteas as Dr. Abel Campos, which of course is an alias. Duh, I don't know why he'd try to hide it. If Casey Jones was gonna play me in a movie, I'd like people to know it, damn it.
Well, that was a crime, you purse-scrubbing pukes.
They continuously pan to footage of the real Abigail during some of these scenes, and man, they did an amazing job of making this totally normal-looking British actress, Charlotte Milchard, look freaky as hell. I'm more scared of her than I am of the aliens. If mom and dad left for a Christmas party and this was my babysitter, I'm hiding in the fucking closet. Because she might seem frail and nice, but it's that kind of Kevin Spacey from Seven strapped a bomb to me with duct tape, and I'm trying to play it cool, nervous nice that I simply can't trust. Abel hypnotizes Abby on camera in an effort to help her remember the face of the attacker who'd snuck in her bedroom in the middle of the night and murdered her husband. One must admit that the editing in this movie is top-notch. They move seamlessly from real footage to acting footage to the hypnotic state. It's impressive.
Groovy.
We then learn that Nome, Alaska, where all these freaky events take place, is unreachable by road. You actually have to fly there. So here we have our first of many fact checks in this film, and it appears that this statement is true. Because it is off the main road system. This remote city is accessible only by air or water. The city is the landing spot for the end of the famed Iditarod dog sled race and hosts a population of less than 4,000 people. They also host the world's largest gold pan. But they aren't known for aliens. More on that later. They aren't known for white owls stalking people like Batman from their windowsills either. But that's what Alice's patients are all telling her. Each one of them wakes up in the middle of the night to a white owl staring at them. And Jesus, that thing is frightening. We learned during the exposition that this phenomenon has been going on for some time, and that over 300 people have reported waking up around 3 a.m. in a panic for no apparent reason. When the tail of the tape shows Abby hypnotizing one of her patients, Tommy, to recall one of his 3 a.m. visits, things become unsettling. The way he specifically responds, screaming "no" over and over again, while crawling all over the couch like Tom Cruise, is way too on the nose for real-life sleep tremors. The movie will obviously go on to claim that these terrors aren't just medical phenomena, they are alien abductions that we don't remember. On behalf of everyone who has experienced sleep terrors, great, grand, wonderful.
No yelling on the bot!
Exactly what I wanted to hear. That'll help my sleep. Tommy doesn't want to tell her what he saw, but that night we make a hard cut to real footage of a 911 call, where his wife is screaming at him to put the gun down and let their children go. Meanwhile, the sheriff arrives, played by none other than Halloween 2018's finest, Will Patton.
Jesus Christ!
Me!
The man simply plays a great small-town sheriff. Tommy says that he has no choice before reciting some gobbledygook that his vision told him and promising that he or his family will never have to see what he saw again before tragically killing his family and himself. It's a shockingly dark moment that heightens the sense of danger and dread in the film. And it's the kind of thing that makes you glad this probably isn't a true story. When Abby talks to the sheriff, he starts to blame her for what happened. We get a big exposition dump and find out that apparently the town of Nome, Alaska has more unsolved murders and missing people than any other town in the state. And it's time for yet another fact check. The answer is surprisingly yes and no. While Nome does not in fact lead the state in disappearances nor murders, nor did it then, its per capita numbers can be extremely high based on its low population. In a historic review of Alaska's missing people and crime rates that took place from 1960 to 2004, which covers the timeline of the film, Nome had 24 disappearances on record. That's about one disappearance every 1.8 years. The state of Alaska overall has had approximately 1,240 disappearances over that same time frame, making Nome's 24 cases account for roughly 2% of the entire state's disappearance during the study. What makes Nome stand out, however, is its population of less than 4,000 residents. So, in summation, this claim is not particularly true, but the town does have a surprisingly high rate of disappearance per capita. It has had some higher profile cases in the years since The Fourth Kind released, including the disappearances of Joseph Balderas and Florence Akpulak, which both remain unsolved. It's worth noting that one involved a missing outdoorsman in an area heavily populated by bears, and the other was last seen leaving a bar with an unknown gold miner. Neither had any strange science fiction circumstances surrounding them, as far as we know. But back to the movie, for now. Dr. Abigail is now hypnotizing another Nome resident in an attempt to find out what in the unholy hell is going on with that owl. This is the first time the terrors are referred to as they, likely meaning little green or gray guys, before Scott starts making sounds that sound a whole lot like someone who's being experimented on by aliens.
Chim chimney, chim chim chiroo! Hi!
You know, the clicking and metallic tearing. Scott says that the aliens, though he can't remember what they look like, smell like putrid cinnamon and could talk to them telepathically.
Was that right?
You smell like beef and cheese. You don't smell like Santa.
Afterward, we pop the top off this bottle of Scary as Abby hears a recording she gave to her assistant to transcribe. She apparently fell asleep while recording, and during the playback, you can hear the most frightening nails on a chalkboard sound possibly ever recorded of her screaming while an electronic voice of hate barks things at her. It's genuinely unsettling. Abby goes home and breaks down the language in the tape the best that she can, which leads to her reaching out to a language expert who concludes that it sounds like Sumerian, which is considered the holy grail of dead languages and the oldest language in human history. He breaks down that the tape seems to say something like, "Our creation, examine, ruin, or destroy."
That voice is speaking a language that predates Egyptian hieroglyphics.
The specialist claims that you can go to any Sumerian exhibit and see that the civilization had drawings of rockets that looked like Apollo launching into the sky, etchings and sculptures of men in spacesuits that looked like oxygen masks, all made 4,000 years before even Christ walked the earth. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another fact check. And surprisingly, it's actually not total bullshit.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
The audio here is obviously most likely fictional, but it's kind of a cool movie tie-in to some semi-real life stuff. For example, Sumerian is one of the oldest known written languages, and scholars have been able to translate some of it over time. Also, real Mesopotamian art discovered over time does in fact include unusual winged discs, stylized gods, and elongated figures with reptilian features. Many archaeologists, though, reject the notion that these pieces of art resemble rockets or oxygen masks, arguing instead that they are religious or symbolic works of art. The artwork, though, is also not relegated to only Sumerian culture, but several different Mesopotamian cultures and time periods. So, in movie talk, it's close enough to at least have some fun with, but it's likely not supported by mainstream archaeology. Next, the phone rings, and surprise! Scott is freaking out at home after going under hypnosis earlier and needs help. I'm starting to agree with Will Patton here that we should just pretend none of this is happening, and hypnosis only seems to make things worse.
Abby, what you're doing is hurting people, very obviously.
But they go to his house, and we're off again in one of the freakiest scenes in the movie where they again hypnotize Scott, who gives us the holy shit package of sleep abduction. He screams and levitates above the bed as his mouth opens wider and wider than any mouth should ever open. The voices say something about, "There's no need to pray, but to end the study." I feel like we're all in agreement now. It's probably time to end the study. Dear God, end the study. And the police agree. Will Patton shows up to Abby's house pissed off and looking like Ric Flair about to go up against Macho Man Randy Savage for the World Championship belt, and informs her that Scott is paralyzed from the neck down after their hypnosis event. He tells her that he's gonna arrest her if she leaves her home again until he has this sorted out. We then return to our interview with the director, in which real-life Abigail explains the different kinds of encounters. The first kind is when you see a UFO. The second is when you see evidence of it, like crop circles. The third is contact, and the fourth is abduction. These classifications come from astronomer and ufologist Joseph Allen Hynek's classification of alien encounters. She also drops the haunting thought that people all over are being abducted just like the people in her studies. Only we're forced to forget it. Don't go too deep into thought on that one unless you want to have trouble going to sleep tonight. Yes, I'm talking to myself.
Go to sleep! Go to sleep! It's time to go to sleep! Oh my God!
But it sets the table for the craziest moment of the film. The officer tasked with supervising the house gets out of his car, and his dash cam records a giant black shape hovering above the home before the camera spazzes out. We can't see anything, but we hear the officer radio in and say that it is taking someone out of the house and into the air. At this point, we feel like Helen Hunt and Twister screaming, "I want to see it!" while Bill Paxton tries to console us. As it turns out, Ashley was the only one taken out of the house, and Will Patton delivers an Oscar-worthy performance. Yes, I said it and I don't care who hears it.
Abby! Where is she, goddammit? You tell me where she is!
When he finally loses his shit on Abigail and takes her son from her custody. Her only course of action now is to have Abel put her under hypnosis so she can try to get answers. We witness her abduction, which includes a very intimidating metal prong situation, first branding her shoulder, and then, God, I don't want to know. But it causes her to convulse and do the freaky mouth opening way too much thing on the couch, while unleashing a satanic scream. The Sumerian voice says, "I enforce my will," refuses to return her child, and then proclaims, "I am God." What's even more messed up about this situation is that when she is sat back on the couch, her jaw still looks dislocated as her mouth hangs open. Then there's more screaming and Jason Bourne fight scene style camera work. She tells us that the aliens abducted all three of them that night, and they don't remember where they took them or what they did to them. We then learn that her husband had chosen to end his own life, and Abby made up her story in her own head that he was murdered and was able to deal with his death. This is supposedly why, to this day, nobody seems to believe her about the studies, despite the videos clearly showing she's not lying, which is a weird plot hole. The camera pans back to reveal she's in a wheelchair from injuries sustained during the abduction. Captions then explain that she was cleared of foul play in her missing daughter's, who was never found, disappearance. Yet her son still remains estranged from her and believes she had something to do with it. The fourth kind, and specifically the director himself, then really tries to hammer the point home that this is all somehow real when he walks into the magical forest set from the beginning of the film and claims that since the 1960s, there have been over 2,000 visits to Nome by the FBI, the highest in Alaska. In comparison, Anchorage, with over 76 times the population, has somehow only had 353 visits over that same period, which would be pretty goddamn astounding if true. So one more fact check. And how the hell do you fact check FBI visits? Exactly. And it's especially fishy considering that the FBI literally has a home base in Anchorage, Alaska. So would they even count the things that they investigate there as visits? If so, they would greatly fudge those numbers. With some digging, you can find that the FBI has in fact sent teams to investigate the troubling number of disappearances and deaths in the area of Nome, Alaska. But these were more about investigating the possibility of a serial killer than aliens. Not that they would tell us that's what they were there for. Still, the investigation found that even a serial killer was an unlikely explanation because the timeline did not support a serial killer being active for over that long of a time period. But more importantly, it was far more likely that the region's alcoholism issues mixed with the rough climate were to blame rather than something nefarious. Supporting this theory, many of the bodies that were found didn't have any trauma, which supported hypothermia far more than murder. Some will argue that this could simply be FBI cover-ups, but the story doesn't end there. When marketing The Fourth Kind, Universal dug into the Blair Witch Project bag of tricks and built a website for the movie to house a bunch of creepy news stories from Nome, Alaska about mysterious events. The only problem is that many of them were fake. Actually, the real problem is that Universal decided to use real Alaskan publications and news outlets to create fake documents for the website. They even used the names of actual Alaska-based journalists in the articles. The Anchorage Daily News went scorched earth when they reported on the settlement that NBC Universal was being forced by lawsuit to offer the press club $20,000, with another $2,500 toward a scholarship fund for their website hijinks, and for their half-assed Hollywood alien abduction movie that irritated the people of Nome. The article also notes that even after they cried foul, the website's owners initially ignored them until the owners were sued. It also notes that the film was shot in the Balkan Mountains in Bulgaria, which is about as far as you can get from Nome's actual aesthetic and geography. And it's true. For all the wooded landscape and atmospheric setting of The Fourth Kind, in actual Nome, Alaska, the trees struggle to grow past 8 feet tall due to the harsh conditions. The article goes on to note that the only thing the two areas actually share in common is the cold weather and troubles with alcoholism, which, again, many believe are two of the likelier scenarios for the disturbingly high per capita numbers of missing people in the region. There still remains an eeriness about these situations in Nome. And in part, this story, dramatizing them in Hollywood fashion, is exactly why The Fourth Kind pissed off so many people in the community. In November of 2018, according to Cowarack.org, Nome and Cowarack jointly requested an FBI investigation due to turmoil and concern rising with public safety. The request was for the FBI to examine the Nome Police Department over civil rights violations. The goals included a more proactive approach in preventing violence and sexual assault in an area where a shocking 51% of women in the Bering Strait region had reported physical or sexual abuse. Also, a 2005 FBI investigation into Nome was unleashed due to a string of incidents in which native villagers went missing or died while visiting. The victims here were not psychologists or patients seeing white owls at night, but often native men from nearby villages who went missing or died under suspicious circumstances. Locals' concerns, though, were more of a mixture of hostility against natives and police misconduct than anything involving alien abductions. Despite the settlements and probably unethical promotion, The Fourth Kind released wide in November of 2009. The film boasted a budget of $10 million and managed to top that on its opening weekend with a haul of over $12 million, including my $15 or whatever it cost at the time to have an excuse to wear your brown pants to the theater.
This guy's got the right idea. He wore the brown pants.
Despite pretty bad reviews, the film ended up with a reasonably impressive worldwide gross of almost $50 million at the box office. While critics dismissed it as hogwash, much of the vitriol towards the film seemed to stem more from their attempts to trick us into believing it was real than from its effectiveness as a horror film. But despite the not cool idea of using an actual town's pain to stage a Hollywood hoax, the movie is viewed far more favorably nowadays from a purely entertainment standpoint. For me, who is deathly afraid of aliens and wouldn't take out the trash alone at night for years after watching Fire in the Sky on HBO as a kid, it's one of the scariest movies of my lifetime. Despite them thinking we're all gigantic idiots who would just swallow all this up as fact, it still manages to be scary as fuck as a horror movie. And that, my friends, is the truth of what really happened to The Fourth Kind.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. We're an independent company, and we appreciate all of your support.